announcement that we have the Big Wakes Hertz Lake signs that are available out in by the area where all the good treats are as well. So please go help yourself. Pick up a sign. We have now ordered 400 of those signs, and then we're going through them. So they're going up in the community, and we're gaining support. And we thank you guys for voicing your support for this initiative. Yep, I got it.
Okay, we're going to move on to something a little different. As we've been working with this research boat and doing some of this work, Rich and I fish, we run the tournament together. Steve fishes with us, and Steve had purchased a live scope. My son has one, and this is new technology that is pretty amazing. And Steve said, why don't I bring out my live scope and let's just take a look and see what this shows. And because it really does show, it's like an x-ray under the water. And so we're going to share some of the imaging that this has shown. I'm going to turn over to Rich for that. And then after that, I purchased a drone, so I want to do a little drone work. We got some drone images of some water that I want to describe and share with you, and then talk a little bit about the topography of Lake Beulah and why it's so tough to wake surf on Lake Beulah and not do damage. So I'll turn it over to Rich, talk about the live scope.
Thanks, Brian. All right, so what you're seeing here is this is a screen of a live scope. Basically, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. It's going out to about 70 feet. We're about 14 feet here. There's something there at 30 feet out, and about 5 feet down where there's a school of minnows. Go back to that last slide real quick. So normal sonar shoots a cone down. This forward-facing sonar, you have a bar down here, and you have your transducers shooting straight out. So you're going horizontally instead of vertically down. Now we're going to show you, Steve videotaped the screen as we were doing this study, and this is some good evidence. It's basically the x-ray, and what you're going to see is the prop wash air bubbles going down. So this is a wake boat pass. It's 10 feet there.
This is from a regular pass. The last video was the startup.
That's the prop wash. Now that's just air bubbles going down.
I
And
have
you
to
can
sit
see,
down because the boat's rocking so hard.
you can see how far it went down. This is approximately, what does it say, 16 feet here. So that's just the air bubbles. And then you see this lift up. That's coming off the bottom. When it compresses and it's pulling the sediment up, it's catching that coming back up. Here's the jet boat.
Wait, no, this is actually, oh yeah, this is
the jet boat.
This is a jet.
Jet boat on plane.
You can see it right there. And it's basically maybe 4 feet, 6 feet a little bit.
Rich,
Well, you go ahead.
the big, yeah, that's the air bubbles from the diver.
Oh, okay. So that's over that pass. That's the air bubbles from the divers. So that's not from the jet boat.
Jet boat on plane.
A little bit of turbulence up here.
4 feet down.
Pontoon boat on plane.
Pontoon boat on plane.
Once again, you can see a little bit right here, and that's the air bubbles from the diver.
pontoon boat on plane.
And this is the wake boat on startup. And you'll see, so hold it real quick. So here, this is 24 feet here. It comes up to about 18. And you'll see how far that prop wash goes down. And you got to remember the prop wash is we're only picking up the air bubbles. So there's still turbulence after the air bubbles start coming back up. So when you see this, remember that's just air bubbles. There's more disturbance going deeper than what the live scope will pick up.
Yeah, the orange line is the bottom, that represents the bottom.
Right here.
Yeah.
Wake boat on startup.
So you can see it go down. And then you can see this pull up right here. That's as it goes by, it pulls up.
Can you show that one more time?
Sure.
Yep.
And start up.
Yeah.
Wake boat on startup.
So you can see that is sediment or air bubbles coming out from the bottom.
So this live scope is just a different way of imaging and seeing what, you know, the divers experience with that prop wash coming down, or video from underneath there. And the most fascinating thing of all this was when Bonnie and Sean described how the boat went by and they got lifted up off the bottom. And the water, those boats displace so much water, and when they go by, water's gonna want to re-level. And when what's pushing the water to the side, it's gonna re-level from underneath. And it literally sunk them 3 feet off the bottom. We see that on the live scope, where you see the bottom raise up. And it's just a lot of energy and power that's impacting the lake. And we were just tinkering with this. This is just an incidental type of finding that, we decided, Steve, everybody who's into fishing, this high-speed forward-facing sonar is really crazy stuff. You literally see the fish moving in lifetime. You can see your lure coming in lifetime and watch the fish go towards it. It's pretty crazy stuff. So we decided to take a look at it and see what does it show us in terms of, the prop wash and the impact of the boat underneath the water. So and Beth was, has a medical background, and she didn't understand. She said, well, it's just like an x-ray up under the water. And I said, ultrasound, or an ultrasound of underwater. I said, it's a good way to describe it. So
Steve?
Somebody had a question earlier about what it would do to the fish. How did the fish react to these boats going over? I noticed with that live scope, and you could see on some of them that Rich just showed, you could see the fish in those pictures. But what I noticed when we did the test, sometimes you do 8 passes in the same 200-foot area, but the boat would go over, the fish would scatter, they'd come back in. Same thing the next time, and maybe the third time, but the third or the fourth time, usually the fish wouldn't come back to that same area. They were, I don't know if they went deeper, but they were out of the bed.
I think one of the concerns, on the question about the impact on the fish if they're suspended and out and about, and Rich and I have debated this and talked about, maybe not when they're like a 5-inch bluegill that it will hurt them or affect them, but after the spawn, the bass, the male will guard the fry ball, so the bass is a protective mechanism, will stay together in a ball to look bigger to the prey and to protect each other. And they're out leaving the nest and they're out swimming around. Imagine one of these boats going over one of those newborn fry balls and blowing it apart, and all that protective mechanism is gone. Do they reconvene? They're open to predators? So it can have profound impact. our Tuesday night bass tournaments, which we have records for 15 years, we've seen a drop in the number of fish that are being brought in the tournament. What do we have in 20?
In 2015, we had 317 fish that we weighed in and released over the 20 weeks on Tuesday nights, and last year we weighed in 89, and we've had about the same amount of people.
It's been down for a while.
Our crappies are way down.
Crappies are
Shallow water bluegills are non-existent. There's 2 species of bluegills, genetic strains, and we talked to the biologists about this. There's a shallow water spawner that'll spawn in 3 feet, 4 feet. There's one that'll, the other genetic spawns in 8 to 10 feet. And we noticed in the last 5 to 10 years, the shallow water bluegills, just go out there in the spring where you used to find bluegills, by the seminary, by your pier, our pier, there's very few. And the biologist said one thing could be overfishing, because Beulah's now got big bluegills. And 2, he said, if the wave action breaks up that ball fry in shallow water and those fry get dispersed, they get eaten immediately by other fish, and they're not recruiting the shallow water spawners. So he said basically that genetic strain will be gone. And if this boat can impact 8 feet of water, imagine what it's doing down there. And you got to remember, the 8-foot spawners spawn later in the year because it's colder down there. So when they start wake surfing in June, those fish are still spawning well into the 2nd week of June, maybe the 3rd week. So they're impacting that spawn. Same with the bass and any other fish that's spawning, except for maybe the walleye. Those deeper water fish are still being impacted.
All right, next we're gonna move into a little bit of the aerial drone footage. And since we had this boat, the industry claims that all you need is 10 feet of water to wake surf and you won't be doing any harm. So we wanted to take the wake boat out in 11 to 13, 14 feet of water and run it a little bit. And I got the drone up and we ran a little footage of that just to see if their claim is gonna hold up. So go ahead and
Just hold this for a second.
Yeah.
So going back to that video, I just want to describe this. So here, this is a center hump out from the camp, Charles Alice. This is about 8 feet deep here, and you can see how it fades off. This is 11 to 12 feet, 13 feet, and we did take an actual rope with foot marks on it, and we manually measured it because we know sometimes the sonar is not accurate with leads and stuff. And we ran along that, and you can see how it dips here. This is deeper. This is like 10, and this is 8 to 9, and the weeds are higher up here than off the edges. But you got to remember, this slopes down, so that is a hump that slopes. And you're going to see the video, and this is in wake surf mode. So we're going along the edge of it, and that's right about there's about 13, 14 feet.
What's interesting is it takes time for the turbulence to kick it up. So it's real delayed. A wake boat operating will be well down the lake. They won't even know that this has happened behind them.
That's all sediment. And I mean, we live right across from the camp, and we're up on the hill. And 3 weekends ago, when they were out there surfing, that plume, because they don't know it's there. They go over last night, they were going over that all the time. That plume was 100 yards from a west wind. It was 100 yards out here. Luckily, these weeds are holding up, but it's not Kara, so it doesn't hold the sediment down, so they can go over. Now they are blowing weeds up. We blew weeds up,
Right.
but it's really pulling the marl, the bottom up. And I mean, it's a mess. And where's that going? That's getting distributed, down to the seminary shoreline. Eventually,
You can see some weeds that surfaced from that. So it is uprooting some of those. So we'll play the next one. We just there we
Now this one we went over the top, and this is pretty. This is, you can see the camp, but this gets repeatedly done multiple times over the weekend.
This spot is not on any map of Lake Beulah. It is not. You look at any map, you look at that map, that spot is not on there.
And I hate to say this, even the local people don't know. People that live on the lake don't know it's there because we watch them go over it too. And do we buoy it? Well, if we put buoys on every spot that's sensitive, the lake would look terrible. Plus that buoy, that's getting ran over on a busy Saturday or Sunday afternoon within 15 minutes, somebody not paying attention.
It's right in the middle of the lake. And keep in mind, this is just one spot, and I'm going to get into it. In fact, we'll get into it now. I'm going to go over a little bit of some satellite images of Lake Beulah. As fishermen, there's so much structure. It's extremely difficult for them to wake surf on Lake Beulah without doing this type of stuff. So we'll move forward and next. Okay. Okay. So this is hopefully you can see it. This is as satellite image. The shaded lighter areas, like right in here, those are shallows. Okay. Keep in mind this is coming from a satellite way up. This is shallows, weeds. So on South Shore, there's a huge shallow shelf that comes out. This right here is the point, Frescona Point. That's when you go into Mill Lake here from the beach. There's a shelf here that, and I fish this a lot. Work this weed edge. I follow this edge. I'm going all the way out to here, and I'm coming all the way across here. Those boats think they're in the middle of the lake when they're coming through here. I'll be fishing this edge, and there's wake boats coming inside of me all the time. And I see the plume, and I see the damage being done. And it carries all the way out to here and through here. So, you know,
That's like 6 feet, right, Brian? 6 feet deep?
6 feet, 6 to 7 feet. There's a deep basin here. There's another one here, but you can see that comes to a point. There's one little sliver, and I'll have another map that'll highlight even better. That is very difficult to hit if they're going to try and go from one deep basin to the other. So the way Lake Beulah lays out is just a huge challenge. We had a guy in our bass tournament that had a wake boat. He said he'd be coming down there, a boat's coming his way, you have to go a little bit to the right, and he sees the plume go up, and he sold his boat. So he was like, I just can't do it on this lake. Next slide, we'll just go through a couple more maps. This is West Bay. So here's the boat launch right here. West Bay, that's towards Stringer's Bridge. There's a hump right in the middle here. You may have seen the picture of it coming in. It's all scarred up. These boats are they're coming around, turning around through here. They don't even know that's there until they're on it, and by then they're already scarring it. This is Wilmer's Point. This actually comes out pretty far. It doesn't look as far, but there's a fair amount of scarring there, and then there's a lobe right here. Next one. And this is an area called the Horns. So there's your horns. This is coming from the first image we looked at. That's the pinch point of shallow water with this big flat here. They come into this deep basin. When they come into here, they're doing a lot of damage because it really pinches down between Buck Island and this horn. This used to be a great fishing spot. I don't even fish it anymore. The weeds are gone. And it was a tremendous fishing spot. And there's a little sliver of deep water, but almost impossible to hit. There's also a hump right down in this area. I think we can see it right there, a little shaded there. What's interesting with this one is they don't so much come from the bay over it, but they'll shoot in. The south side of it's pretty bare. The right side still has a few weeds on it, so we'll hit that a little bit. Next slide. So this is a topographical map to just bring it out to an easier way to see it. This is the big shelf here that I was talking about at South Shore. If we're looking at the green is 30 foot, the red is 20 foot. 20 actually doesn't add much to it. When Beulah drops, it drops pretty good, and it goes deep to 40, 45 feet of water. So, you know, when you're talking about trying to wake surf in a zone, you're trying to hit these little areas here. You cannot get from this one to that one without damage. You can't get to this one from that one at all. These are 1,200 feet maybe, and you know, there should be distance between a wake boat and wake surf mode and another boat. So how do you manage packing everybody into those small zones? It's not gonna work. So you're just gonna try and solve one problem, create another problem in terms of safety. And then Long Lake, that hump is right here, technically doesn't even factor that in, or it would cut it off right here. But you have a zone here, same thing. It's long, but it's narrow. You're gonna have a tough time with boats keeping distance from each other. So, go ahead.
Sorry, Brian. To me, the message here is you see these maps where they want to put buoys 200 feet from shore going all the way around the lake to create a no-wake zone, which is perfectly fine, but it really doesn't play to what's happening from a wake surfing standpoint, because you saw all the topography from those last maps that he was showing, that our lake is not a bowl, that does not designate you are now in deep water, and it's almost impossible to navigate the lake in a wake surf mode without doing damage to those shallow areas. So I think that's what the takeaway needs to be.
Okay. I actually had a slide that I must not have saved into it, but I had a map of Lake Geneva. And Lake Geneva is going to 30 feet and 500 feet as a recommendation. Now, there aren't any ordinances in the state that have a zone enforceable by law. So they're all recommendations. Lake Geneva is 5,500 acres. It's big, wide open. When you're going in the middle of Lake Geneva and down towards Fontana and Williams Bay, you're 2,000 feet from shore. And there's plenty of room. Lake Beulah is not that, and that was the point I was gonna make with that. So some of the conclusions, live scope imaging confirms, boats in wake surf mode of down prop wash is significantly different from other planing boats. Does have significant impacts on lake bottom. Aerial drone video demonstrates significant bottom disruption and bottom rear suspension to water from 11 to 13 feet. Many spots in Lake Beulah like that. The current wake surf industry claim that it is okay to wake surf in 10 plus feet of water is inadequate and irresponsible. Obviously, following that recommendation leads to significant damage to the lake's ecosystem. And then the satellite and depth contour maps, just without reading it all, show that Lake Beulah is a long, narrow lake. It is not a wide open, deep basin lake that would lend itself to creating a safe space for wake surfing without endangering or impacting the lake and then creating safety issues with other users. Next slide. So I just had a couple of wrap-up notes here that I want to touch base on. God and nature gave us Lake Beulah the way it is. We can't make it any bigger. And the lake can't protect itself, so it's up to us to protect this lake. All of us, not just wake boats, every boat. We're in shallow water, everything there. In terms of an effort to protect this lake, it can be frustrating. Since the April electors meeting, where there was overwhelming support to prohibit the use of ballast tanks, trim devices, and operating a boat in a bow-high fashion, there's been little response from the town board. And it's discouraging since the electors meeting comments at the town meeting have been prohibited. So what every town meeting since the electors meeting, we have been prohibited to talk about wake surfing and wake enhancement. And that's not the type of response that we were looking for. Town chairman has promised a public hearing on the issue of wake enhancement all summer long. In terms of what we can do, if and when the town board holds a promised public meeting, we will need support of everyone to attend that and to voice yourselves, give your opinions, and support protecting the lake. Lakes are some of our most precious resources, and actually I saw a slide that between Lake Beulah and Potter's Lake and Army Lake, they account for 52% of the total town property value. And if we let these lakes go to algae blooms and get destroyed, fish populations decline, we're all gonna pay, because if lake property values go down, non-lake people, residents are gonna have to make up the difference. So we need to protect these lakes. Also, there is a annual meeting for Lake Beulah Management District Monday at 6:30 at the venue. Hadberg and Just Steineck need your support. They have a strong track record of protecting Lake Beulah, and we're seeing all this data because of them, and we appreciate their support. We're getting the science, and we're getting data on Lake Beulah, and it was asked for, but they rose to the occasion to get that.
Can we have them stand up, because we know both of them are here? So this is going to be a very critical vote because the Beulah Responsible Voters, i.e. the wake surf community, has brought two candidates to the slate that they're trying to get in to push their agenda as it relates to this topic that you've been hearing about all morning. And we want to support candidates that truly care about the health and the well-being of the lake. Both Patrick and Jess have. They've been integral in bringing these studies to fruition, making them real, and being able to have open discussion about this topic. It will be a disaster if either of those two candidates get in. Already, we've seen some displacement with the management district because the town chair can appoint who he wants his representative to be, and he basically fired the person that was in that position and brought in a wake surf owner to fill that spot. And although it does incur very good discussion, I encourage good discussion and to have debate back and forth. It will be a different scenario if either of these other two candidates would get in. So please, if you're a riparian owner, come and cast your vote for the two gentlemen that are in this room to keep the highest level of protection for Lake Beulah at hand, because they're doing a fantastic job.
Brad, we have one last segment, and I'll introduce Scott Rawls, who is the founder and president of Lakes at Stake, and he's gonna touch base and review on the University of Minnesota St. Anthony's study, which is